There's only one reason to do a plenary, and that's to give your pupils the opportunity to reflect on and consolidate their learning. A good plenary is a good plenary, whether it's in maths or literacy in a primary school or a secondary school. So what are the ingredients for a good plenary? Well, the absolute essential one is it must involve pupils in thinking. But apart from that, here's a series of questions you can ask yourself. Are your pupils actively engaged? Have you planned it, especially planning your questions? Have your pupils got the opportunity to reflect on and articulate their learning for the lesson? Are there opportunities for you as a teacher to assess what your pupils have learned to enable you to plan for future lessons? Do your pupils understand what they've learned during the lesson? And more importantly, do your pupils understand how they've learned it? So what can potentially go wrong with a plenary? Well, you could run out of time. And ways to deal with that, one way is to set up the plenary question at the beginning of the lesson. The kids then won't let you forget it. Or you can make sure that mentally you think of the packing away of equipment as part of the main part of the lesson, not the plenary. You also have the risk of getting low-level responses or the teacher doing all the thinking. That's because the thinking you're expecting the pupils to do is hard, and you need to design tasks and offer them support to help them to do that thinking. But when you get into the lesson, pupil behaviour can mean that even the best planned lessons go wrong. So what can you do then? Well, the first thing is to be flexible, be prepared to adapt to what's going on in the classroom. Give the pupils warning that the plenary is coming so that you can head off some poor behaviour. And give the pupils some control by asking them challenging questions. And if you're brave enough, you could even give your pupils the opportunity to reflect and comment on why they're not focused. So here are some examples of practical strategies that you can use for your plenaries in the classroom. So you can get the pupils working to summarise their learning. You could get them working in groups or as a whole class to write a single sentence that sums up what they've learned during the lesson. Or you could get them writing 5 golden rules or top tips or important things from the lesson that they've learned today. You can also revisit the learning objectives. You could get the pupils to traffic light or thumbs up or thumbs down, or even place themselves along a spectrum along the line of the classroom to say how they feel they've done against the learning objectives. Or you can get them to go back through their work with a highlighter pen or a pencil to underline 2 things that they think they've done particularly well during the lesson and 1 thing that they think they could improve on. And if you've got time, actually get them to improve on that as well. Or when you get them to write out the learning objectives at the beginning of the lesson, get them to leave a space before they start their work. And in that gap, at the end of the lesson, they can write down how they feel they've done against the learning objectives. Or you could get them talking about what they've learned during the lesson and how they've learned it. You could get them to say how they would explain what they've learned to someone else and give them maybe their granny or an alien or a 5-year-old. You can get them to write a question that they could answer now that they wouldn't have been able to answer an hour ago. If you're asking them to reflect on how they learned, give them some key words, like the words from Bloom's taxonomy, to help them to think to actually express what they've been learning during the lesson. Give them some exemplar work to comment on or grade it. And also say to them, I've got to teach this lesson again to another class. Can you help me to plan it? Or you could get your class to think about what could happen in future lessons. You could use phone a friend, get them to write 3 killer questions that they would like to ask someone about what you've been doing today. Or you could get them to think about how to make the topic harder. Or you could get them to write your next lesson's learning objective.